Hello, and welcome back to part 2 of Arron's episode on the Mental Health Takeaways podcast. We hope maybe in the space of the week between episodes you've had a chance to go for a cold water dip, either in the sea or in a river, or perhaps have a go at some of the breathing exercises that Arron was talking about. In part 2 of the show, Arron talks about his final Would You Rather, which leads us on to discuss about the differences between city and rural locations. And as well as meeting 8-year-old and 18-year-old Arron, we'll also talk to 80-year-old Arron, who's got this to say. What questions would you like to ask 80-year-old you?
I'd like to know how my knees are. Are they still going?
You are not the only person to have had concerns about his knees when he gets to 80.
I just feel like I've done so much sport and these old knees are going to go at some point. No, I'd like to ask you, are you still close with your mates? Or have you drifted apart?
Throughout the episode, we'll talk about modern society and some of the challenges that presents.
And the problem is with our modern society is that just when you're about to connect with someone, they'll pick up their phone or they'll text or something will happen.
Yes.
And that is what makes people feel unsafe and unwilling to have those conversations. And so as soon as we step into nature, as soon as we kind of go into those communities of the icebreakers and stuff like that, and we connect properly, because we're able to connect properly without those distractions. So if anyone's listening and they're struggling, try to get rid of that device and try to give each other real quality time to connect and have a conversation.
And one of the big takeaways from Arron's episode is the power of connection and the importance of connection. And you'll hear more about this.
My one, I was, listening and talking all the way through the conversation. And then I was thinking, I haven't actually written down what is a key takeaway for me. There's not one thing that I circled and thought, that's the thing. And then I realised that for me, there's a theme that's run through it. And that theme is connection. So that for me, it feels as if a really important approach to maintain positive mental health is to connect. So I've written that there's 3 types of connection that we've spoken about in particular.
So we hope you enjoy part 2, guys. Don't forget to like, share, follow, give us a 5-star review, but just spread the word about the Mental Health Takeaways podcast, the show that's aiming to make conversations about men's mental health more accessible for everybody in a light-hearted way. Enjoy part 2 of this fantastic episode.
Where did you say Icebreakers was? Is it Bath, Bristol, Brighton, and did you say London as well?
So London, yeah. So in London, they go in Parliament Hill Lido at the moment, or at Hampstead Heath, kind of ponds, the swimming ponds there.
I knew that you had connections to various cities, but your third and final Would You Rather, I'm looking forward to seeing your answer to this. I feel like I might know what it is, but anyway. Given that you have business interests in city centres, but obviously then you have practices that you engage in the nature or kind of in the wild a little bit. Would you rather never step foot inside any city centre ever again, or never be more than a mile from the city centre? And I'll give you a little bit of an explainer to that as well. I did kind of think, well, isn't it obvious you'd rather just never be in a city centre? But I do think in city centres, there are little islands of tranquility that you can find. There are, because lots of people live and work in city centres and actually have to find those places of self-care within a city centre, like parks. Whalley Weir is probably more than a mile outside the city centre, I'd say. So, yeah, what would you rather do? Never step foot back in a city centre, or never be more than a mile from the city centre?
That's actually a really tricky one. It's like Bath, I'm very lucky to live in Bath, right? And it's got a lot of green. So if I'm thinking about Bath as a city, I feel like I'm in the countryside there anyway. And for me, it is still my social hub. And I really love my friends being around and me being able to walk into town for a coffee and meet people. And it's also where I work. So like my gyms are there to support people. And so they play a key role in my eyes in supporting the community around them. So I think I'd have to stick with being in the city because of that reason. I'm stuck there, but only because I live in Bath. I think if I lived in London, I'd be on the other shoe. I'd be straight. I'd be like, no.
But Bath being in like the natural bowl that it's in, you can see green spaces kind of all around you, I suppose.
You've got a lot of green, even Victoria Park's beautiful. Go up to the
Yeah.
old trees at the botanical gardens, and you can really escape in the city.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a good answer. I think my natural instinct was to say, well, you'd rather be outside of a city, and enjoying that sort of that natural world. But then I thought, like, realistically, an awful lot of people are in that position of being in a city and having to find little islets of tranquility. And I think that's kind of a key message as well, really, that, yeah, we don't all live in a beach shack in the Caribbean where we can just meditate on the beach for the first 2.5 hours of the day and then wander around it effectively in paradise. But you can still maintain your well-being in a city centre environment. And I suppose that's probably a big mission of yours, that like you say, you have those gyms in city centres and that actually people are there to maintain their well-being. Do you find people are engaging in your gyms for well-being as well as physical fitness? As in, are they there for their mental health as well as their physical health?
Yeah, a huge part of it is that. Because my gyms are based around class-based fitness, so it's a community. So you come in, you have the same community most days at the same time. You build up that connection to people. People notice when you're missing, and they'll say, "Oh, where were you yesterday?" Kind of like they guilt you into the gym, but they make you want to go back for that reason. And it's nice to feel like you missed. Someone noticed you weren't there. Those little touches make a big difference. And then naturally, because of my background, my whole ethos is to try and get people engaging with more of the mental health side of stuff. So every month I'll do a breathwork workshop, teaching people how to breathe better to improve their overall health all the time, not just their physical performance, but using the right breathing muscles for physical and mental clarity as well. And then we do Qigong workshops. We do some yoga stuff there. We do a lot of nutrition stuff, helping people to eat the right foods to give them the energy and the mood that they need. So yes, we try to promote as much as of a holistic approach as possible. And the name of the gym is Tonic, and the whole point of that was like the whole brand is actually called Tonic Life. So living the tonic life means like tonic is the life's elixir. It's a little bit of something that you need to look after you and to keep you balanced and to keep you healthy. So we try and have all aspects to make sure that we're really supporting our clients from all directions, not just beasting them in the gym.
I just think it's a really key message that actually, we can look after our well-being in a city centre. I think a lot of people look at, let's say, Instagram and look at these glorious mountainscapes or beachscapes or wherever other people seem to be and think, I need, if I was there, I'd be happy. But because I live here, I can't be happy. But actually, we can look after our mental health and well-being anywhere, effectively, anywhere where we can access those kind of activities. Brad, did you have anything to say on that?
No, I like it. I can imagine lots of listeners wanting to do a bit of digging actually, and going and have a look on your website and just looking into things, because I just think it's fascinating. I really think it's fascinating, and I just think lots of people now are starting to tune into that and to recognize the benefits of it. I think there's a greater movement towards not just taking a pill for something, but actually recognizing, no, I need to look at my nutrition, I need to think about my mental health, I need to think about my physical health. I think the whole Qigong, I'd never heard of that until Nibbo sort of was talking about you coming on the show and mentioned it. And I think it's great. The more we can expose things like that for people to go away and look into, I think the better, really.
Yeah. Thanks, Brad. In that case, then, that's the end of the Would You Rathers. So, Brad, do you want to go on with the alternate versions of Arron?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Arron, what we're going to do now in this section is give you a minute with yourself, but at various different stages of your life. So the first Arron you're going to meet is 8-year-old Arron. And what we'd like to know is, have you got any advice that you would give to 8-year-old Arron? But you've only got 1 minute to give it. But here he is, skipping into the room. What would you tell him?
8-year-old Arron. Okay, hang on. Let me think about this one for a second. Because 8-year-old Arron was quite shy and quite quiet, and he got bullied a little bit. So I'm going to tell him that actually it's going to be all right. you're going to grow up to be quite a bit bigger than the guys who bullied you. And now you're actually quite good mates with them all. And they all want to hang out with you, which is quite nice. Yeah, you're doing the right things. Just keep on keeping on. Keep up with your sport, and keep being really good to your family. That was it's hard going back and talking to your old self. You're trying to remember what frame of mind I was in back then. And yeah, I think I had it quite tough. I was very lucky. I was very supported by my family, but I felt like I had it quite tough at school for a while. A couple of really good mates. Keep hold of those guys. Those guys are going to be there forever. And so keep laughing with those guys and keep doing stupid stuff.
Yeah.
Don't know how long a minute's left on that, but
no, that's all right. I think that's all sensible advice for an 8-year-old. And balanced as well, you know, a little bit of like, yeah, it's not all roses, but you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. And actually keep the family, keep those close friends close. I think that's good. Okay. Well, he's skipped off, and now 18-year-old Arron is walking in. What advice would you have for him?
I think 18-year-old Arron needed to apply himself just a little bit more. So needs to work a little bit harder. You're going to be on a great path, but if you focus in now, it's going to make it all a lot easier. And you're having a lot of fun, but you're wasting a lot of time messing around, not being as productive as you could be, because things are going to get harder in the next few years. Where you haven't found the right path yet. And if you look for it, it is there. It's not far away. You just need to focus on something for a short period of time and put in a bit of work.
Cool. I think that'd be good advice for a lot of 18-year-olds, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, it would apply to me very well, I think, that whole kind of like... you could help current me out a little bit by just applying yourself a bit more now, 18-year-old Matt. But I don't know if 18-year-old me would have taken that advice anyway, whether he would have just looked at an old man trying to tell him what to do and told him to sod off. I don't know.
And that's probably what this is my dad telling me as well. And I probably just said that to him, but I had a great time at 18, but I just didn't really do anything for so long. And I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in sport, and I knew I wanted to be in like gyms and stuff. And I was doing the qualifications, but I was still messing around so much. And I look back on that time for a year or two. I just kind of just felt like I just wasted it a little bit, and I could have been making some more progress. And yeah, it's the only time in my life I felt like actually I just stood still.
Okay, that's interesting.
It is interesting, but I can tell by the look on your face when you were talking about 18-year-old you that 18-year-old was definitely having a good time. So
he's having a good time.
There we go. The rough with the smooth. Okay, well he's gone now, and the next version of you that you're going to meet is 80-year-old you. Okay, and he's going to still rather athletically and in a fit way, having looked after himself for 80 years on the planet, he's going to strut in too. What questions would you like to ask 80-year-old you?
I'd like to know how my knees are. Are they still going?
You are not the only person to have had concerns about his knees when he gets to 80.
I just feel like I've done so much sport, and these old knees are going to go at some point. No, I'd like to ask you, are you still close with your mates, or have you drifted apart? Because I wonder that loneliness creeping in at that age. Like, you know, you still meeting people, you're still seeing your friends, and maybe even are your friends still alive?
That's fascinating. We haven't really talked about social groups outside of the stuff that you do, like the icebreakers stuff and like the gym. What do you think 80-year-old you would answer if you could sort of second guess what he might say to you? Do you think he'd say that you're still in touch with your oldest friends?
I like to say he's having lunch or dinner weekly with some of his friends. That's what I like him doing. At least once a week, out having a lunch or a dinner with his mates, hopefully a couple of glasses of wine as well, and just relaxing and enjoying things, because he's worked hard and he deserves it.
And is that a fear for you that you are? I mean, you're significantly younger than Brad and I, but that with all your very healthy living and your self-care practices, that you might, when you reach the age of 80, that you might be more able and more healthy and more able to do physical activities of whatever nature you might want to do, that actually your friends, if they're not engaging in the same practices, might not be able to do them with you. Does that concern you at all?
I've never thought of that, to be honest with you. And now you're saying it, it does actually concern me. Of course, yeah, I'd like to be like, I love going out walking. And I think even, into my 80s, hopefully into my 90s, I'll be out walking daily. That would be my thing. You've got to keep the body moving. And it's just something I love to do. But not many of my friends enjoy that same passion to the level that I do. And is it something they'll give up as they get a bit older? Potentially. I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to know. Or maybe you find yourself gravitating towards new people, but that obviously gets harder as you get a bit older anyway, to find the new people you want to do things. I think like we are living in a world that is getting better at dealing with this loneliness situation, right? So I would hope that by the time I'm in my 80s, it's really easy and accessible to me to find a group of people who walk. Like that would just be on my radar because of the lifestyle I lead, right? And so I really hope that I would still find myself in a very active lifestyle at that age. And that's why I want to know where my knees are. Because
And I would also think that choosing to live in the city centre, like if you didn't have the choice of city centre or more than a mile outside, that actually they're very social places, aren't they? It's quite easy, like you said, that's the centre of your social circle is being able to stroll into town and meet someone for a coffee. And actually, if you stay connected to that, then as you age, strolling into the city centre might become slightly more challenging, but still not difficult. And even then, there's transport links, and there's places to park and all that stuff. So I'd not thought about it either. Brad, did you have that thought about when people get to 80, like if they are outliving some of their friends and then I don't know what the word is, like staying more healthy than some of their friends and not able to do some of the things that their friends used to like to do with them?
I'd never really had that thought, but I tell you, it has tapped into a recent awareness of mine, because I've always kind of prescribed to the idea of like, I think people get old when they stop, and so I would never want to, like, I'd never want to stop surfing, and I'd never want to stop being active and doing those sorts of things. So I've always sort of prescribed to that actually I want to maintain that, and I guess to a degree those friendships as well. But what I have noticed, being a little bit self-aware at the moment, is that actually I'm like, oh, that's creeping in, and it's easy for it to creep in. Like, I did go for a surf the other day, but I haven't actually surfed an awful lot this year. I'm not doing terribly well at keeping in touch with mates that live down in Cornwall, and it's a bit trickier in Cornwall because geographically it's not like a city centre. You can't all just jump into the city centre, and we're all quite spread out. And it did make me think the other day. I was like, oh, am I slipping towards old here? And is there a risk of like actually that kind of loneliness kind of creeping in a bit? So yeah, I think it is good to put it on the agenda, because I think it's perhaps easier done than we think to just fall into those habits. So yeah, but I'd not thought about it before, but it's definitely worth having on the radar, I think, to maintain those good habits.
It's bringing me down.
This is this idea that preempting, like doing stuff now to make sure we look after our health in the future. So if we're staying fit now and staying relatively consistent and surrounding ourselves with the right people who also encourage that and support us, and we do active stuff together, then you hopefully will have more of that around you as you get on. So it's like cultivating your own personal health, but also the healthy relationships right now.
Yeah,
prehab.
Yeah, definitely.
It's that qigong mentality again.
That's it.
And this is why qigong tai chi was practiced in communities and groups of people in parks as a vitality practice.
Yeah.
I mean, it all ties up, doesn't it? That whole idea of it being a preventative measure, and I think we've just talked around why that's so important. And actually, it's no good getting to 80, being drastically out of shape and riddled with ailments, and starting to want to address it then, It's now that you start addressing things in order so that isn't an issue when you get to that age.
Both my grandmothers, when their partners passed away, they had like similar timings on it, when their husbands passed. But one of them in particular joined a group, and she was off on coach trips, and she was working at Dorothy House and doing charity work. And she kept really active, and mentally she was really with it for a long period of time. She stayed really, really, really very kind of healthy, and the other grandmother, she went more insular and did less and less, and her health deteriorated so quickly, but particularly her mental health as well. Alzheimer's was creeping in, all these things, because she stopped moving her body, and then she stopped socializing. The most two important things, like being around other people and just moving. Like, you take that so much for granted. As soon as you sit and you stagnate, and that's when everything starts to go to pot.
It's totally there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brad, I reckon we're at a perfect point to come around to the takeaway. So, Arron, what we'll do is we'll go through I'm going to try to limit mine to one. Brad is infamous for having, he'll say that he's going to have one, but his one will have, an addendum and then an addition to that addendum, and he'll have about 17 that he says, and that's my one takeaway. But I'm going to be slightly more disciplined and share with you, but also share with the listeners, my one key piece of learning from this conversation. Brad will share his book of takeaways. And then if there's anything that felt like a key theme for you from this conversation, by all means, you share that with us, and we'd really love to hear it. My one, I was, listening and talking all the way through the conversation, and I was thinking, I haven't actually written down what is a key takeaway for me. There's not one thing that I circled and thought, that's the thing. And then I realised that for me, there's a theme that's run through it, and that theme is connection. So that for me, it feels as if a really important approach to maintain positive mental health is to connect. So I've written that there's 3 types of connection that we've spoken about in particular. One being that whole idea of connecting to nature, either through the cold water swimming, because it's such a tangible thing. You can literally feel the force of nature on your body, but also the breathing you do before that. That's obviously a connection to nature, because oxygen is from the trees. Like, we are breathing in what they're breathing out, and that I feel really connects us strongly to nature. And you did also mention about your feet being on the earth and feeling that. So there's a connection to nature, there's a connection to people through your swimming groups, but also that approach of the tonic life being that it's group-based fitness, and then it's connecting to people that actually helps to inspire and motivate people. It's by no means a Chinese proverb, but I was reminded recently of how I go to a group therapy session, and the words to the theme song to Cheers really resonated with me one week of making the way in the world today takes everything you got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. Wouldn't you like to get away? Sometimes you want to be where everybody knows your name and they're always glad you came. And I was like, that's my therapy group that I go to. But also it sounds like the tonic life fitness of they're always glad you came. They're always glad, well, I'm pleased you're here, and they miss you when you're not there. So there's a really strong connection with people there. And then the last type of connection, which I've saved for last because I think it's the most important, is that idea of connecting with yourself, and that idea of, I don't know if I ever, well, I certainly don't regularly, think of myself as being a collection of organs. I more or less just think about my body and my mind. I very rarely connect with that idea of, this is what my heart is doing, this is what my lungs are doing, this is what my spleen or intestines are doing. And I've got a degree in sports science. I know those things exist, but they still don't come to the forefront of my mind. And what I really liked was how you were talking about through Qigong, that whole idea of connecting with those parts of yourself on a very conscious level, and connecting with your mind, and connecting with your needs as well. Like how are those things feeling, and what do I need to address in those organs that actually Qigong could help me with, and the cold water swimming could help me with, or being part of a fitness, a group-based fitness gym could connect me with. So that's what I really liked about our conversation, that theme of connection that I thought ran all the way through, and that how positive it is for anyone's mental health. Brad, what was your takeaway? Are you going to keep it to one, or are you going to...
I just want to clarify that was one takeaway from you, actually. Yeah, all right. Yeah,
Clearly,
my takeaway is connection.
The word connection.
Connection on this. Connection on that. Connection on this.
The word connection.
But yeah, I mean, mine's similar, actually. And again, it goes back to the theme that I think has run all throughout this. And it's why I think I've just found it so engaging to listen to you talk, Arron, actually. And I was quite smug because I wrote these down way back at the beginning, and I was like, these are my takeaways. But it was along a similar lines to you, actually. So Nibbo, my one takeaway was going to be 3 words. Okay, it was going to be 3 words. It was going to be nature, community, connection. Because they were the 3 things that jumped out at me right off the bat from when you started talking, but they have followed that thread in everything that you've talked about. And I just think those things are so valuable, and they're easily accessible. You know, anyone can go outside, whether you live in the countryside, whether you live in the city. We can go out and experience nature. Even if you're in the middle of the city, you can go out and you can look up and be like, wow, look at the sky, look at the stars. You know, it's an easy thing to do, but I think it's incredibly grounding when we're in nature, because it almost reminds us that actually we're not that significant in the grand, universe. We're not that significant, and therefore our worries aren't probably as significant as we might make them either. And everything that you've talked about with the kind of ethos behind the icebreakers and your gyms, that kind of that community and that connection is so important. And we know that humans are designed to sit in tribes. We're more productive, we're more effective. We produce more serotonin in our brains when we're in them. And that's one area that I think actually has gotten a bit lost, and hopefully is coming back around in the way that these lifestyle changes that we've been talking about are. But I think that is something where it's so easily remedied. If you can find a community and if you can find those connections, the possibilities are endless in terms of how we can improve our mental health. So I've loved hearing your story tonight. And so they're my 3 words: nature, community, connection.
Brad, I was absolutely certain you were going to say something about stagnation and energy in motion, or emotion being energy in motion. Because as soon as Arron said it, your head went down and started scribbling in your notes. And I thought, I'll leave that because Brad's going for that. But you've dumbfounded me, and you've gone with something that mirrors mine. Arron, have you got a theme or a key takeaway from the conversation?
I think you guys nailed it. And actually, if this was like a business coaching call, you've just kind of given me my 3 core values, haven't you? Like the nature, the community, connection. We've just worked that out. But yeah, you're right. That is.
Oh yeah, we're charging you for this.
Yeah. Send it in the post. Yeah. I just think connection is such a key one that people just miss out on so much. And even when you were saying those words, connection, like even through my computer, I feel like we've really connected tonight through the conversation. And the reason for that is giving each other attention. Like, yeah, I've seen you guys look down and scribble, but at no point have any of us drifted off on our phones. And the problem is with our modern society is that just when you're about to connect with someone, they'll pick up their phone or they'll text or something will happen.
Yes.
And that is what makes people feel unsafe and unwilling to have those conversations. And so as soon as we step into nature, as soon as we kind of go into those communities of the icebreakers and stuff like that, and we connect properly, because we're able to connect properly without those distractions. So if anyone's listening and they're struggling, try to get rid of that device and try to give each other real quality time to connect and have a conversation, because it's so valuable. Even through a computer screen, we're getting this really valuable connection, which I love. So just want to say, thank you for the conversation and the good work you guys are doing.
It's a total pleasure, Arron, and thank you as well. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with the podcast, that we feel like men need to, we don't want to be too prescriptive, but it would be beneficial for more men to talk more. And we know that for some men, getting involved in whatever their thing might be to help them talk more might be difficult. So what we're trying to do is just give these example conversations that men can listen to and then start to be just a little bit more informed and just start their journey in the easiest possible way by listening to other people have a conversation and listening to and seeing other people connect, in order that that might motivate them towards actually starting to make another connection themselves, which ultimately we hope will benefit their mental health. That's the aim of the whole project. So yeah. Arron, I know we've said thank you probably already, and we said thank you at the start for coming on, but I'm absolutely confident a number of our listeners are going to find the stuff that we've talked about this evening really, really helpful. So thank you ever so much for coming on. For the benefit of the listeners, the links to Arron's businesses will be in the show notes, so you'll be able to access those just as a link immediately that you can click on and be taken to Arron's various pages. And if there's any comments or feedback from the episode, please, by all means, get in touch with me and Brad, and we'll pass those on to Arron. Good job. Thank you, Arron.
Cool.
Thanks,
yeah,
guys.
thank you so much, Arron.
Thank you ever so much, everyone, for listening to our episode with Arron there. As we said in the episode, the links to his various services, icebreakers, tonic life gyms, and his Qigong, they're all in the show notes. So the show you're listening to now, if you go into I think it's like the About This show, in there'll be links to get to Arron, and on the social media as run by the Right Honourable Bradley Smith. Brad, good guest. Enjoy that conversation.
Yeah, great guest. I really enjoyed chatting to him. Just a really nice guy, wasn't he, as well? But I love the message. I love this idea of actually really reinforcing the proactive approach, and I love that it was really holistic what he talked about. You know, he wasn't just focused on the body, he wasn't just focused on the mind. Actually, he just sees it all as one, and it's all connected. And I loved some of those kind of Eastern methods that he talked about. So yeah, I really enjoyed listening to Arron, and lots to take away that I think people can jump straight into, excuse the pun, and try.
Hey, or dive straight into. Yeah, I find that a really interesting thought. Like, I'd like to know more about it. Obviously, we've been raised in Western culture and Western society and Western philosophy, and it isn't until you start learning about something different to that, i.e. Eastern culture, Eastern philosophy, that you realise our way of thinking is just one of the ways of thinking, and there are other ways of thinking for the human race. We're all actually effectively the same, but actually the problems like mental health, there are other approaches to it, and that actually our listeners might find, if they've tried one of the Western approaches to it, which I don't want to run it down at all, but a big part of the Western approach is reactive medication.
Yeah.
But actually that there are Eastern philosophies that say, well, you can have preemptive or preventative, non-medical approaches to your mental health. So things that you can do to almost safeguard and ensure your mental health, so that to prevent it from becoming poor in the first place. And they don't need to be medical approaches. They can be physical approaches, and they can be meditative approaches. And I'm not absolutely certain that I've said the word meditative correctly there. Would you go with Have I got too many its in there? Meditative?
Well, you have now. Don't think you had first time, though.
Oh, nailed it. Yeah, great guest. And we thanked him on the show. But Arron, if you're listening, thank you very much again. That was a brilliant episode with a brilliant guest.
Yeah. Felt like I should have had something else there. Well, that's Qigong for now. Arron's... It's no good thanking him now because he's Qigong.
This is the bit where we do a little funny bit at the end, Brad.
Oh.
We don't do unfunny bits. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will be back next Sunday with another banging show.
Bye-bye.